Hello, and welcome to Slow Stories. Today we have a quiet story about a woman named Rosa. Rosa finds an old photograph, and it changes her afternoon. This story is about memory, courage, and a small surprise. Let's begin. Rosa moved into her new apartment on a Tuesday. The apartment was small, but it had big windows. She liked the light in the mornings. But there was one problem. The walls were very empty. Rosa looked at the empty walls and felt a little sad. She had boxes on the floor. She had a table and 2 chairs. But she had nothing to put on the empty walls. On her second day, she opened a big brown box. Inside, she found old things from her mother's house. There were books, a small clock, and some folded letters. Then she noticed something at the bottom of the box. It was a photograph. The photograph was inside a simple wooden frame. Rosa picked it up slowly. She did not recognize it at first. The photograph was black and white. It showed a street she did not know. Rosa looked at the empty wall above her table. She put the photograph on the wall. It looked good there. But she wanted to know more about it. Where was that street in the photograph? Who took that photograph and why? Rosa found an old photograph in a box. She put it on her empty wall. But she did not know the street in the photograph. Rosa took the photograph off the wall. She turned it over. On the back, she saw some handwriting. The handwriting was small and very faded. It was hard to read. Rosa went to the window for better light. She held the photograph up carefully. Slowly, she could read the words. The handwriting said, Maple Street, 1971, Grandma Eva. Rosa felt curious. She had never heard the name Grandma Eva before. But this photograph came from her mother's box. So Eva must be part of her family. Rosa felt more and more curious. She took a photo of the handwriting with her phone. Then she put the old photograph back on the wall. She looked at the faded black and white street. Now it felt different. Now it felt like a clue. Rosa sat down at her table. She opened her laptop. She typed the words, Maple Street, 1971. Many results came up. There were many Maple Streets in many cities. This clue was not enough. Rosa needed more information. She thought about who could help her. Then she remembered her Aunt Petra. Rosa found a clue on the back of the photograph. The handwriting said Maple Street, 1971, Grandma Eva. Rosa felt curious and wanted to learn more. Rosa and her Aunt Petra did not talk very often. They were relatives, but not very close. Petra was Rosa's mother's older sister. Rosa's mother died 2 years ago. Since then, Rosa had only seen Petra twice. Rosa looked at her phone. She hesitated. She was not sure if Petra wanted to talk. But she was very curious about the photograph. So she called. The phone rang 3 times. Then Petra answered. Her voice was warm and a little surprised. Rosa, how nice, Petra said. Rosa said she was sorry to call without warning. Petra said it was no problem at all. Rosa explained about the box. She explained about the photograph. She described the faded handwriting. She said the name, Grandma Eva. There was a short silence on the phone. Then Petra made a small sound. It was a sound, like a memory coming back. Eva, Petra said quietly. Eva was our grandmother, your great-grandmother. Rosa did not recognize that name from her childhood. Petra explained that Eva left the family when the sisters were young. It was a complicated story. Petra hesitated before she continued. Then she said Eva lived on Maple Street, in the town of Hartwell. Rosa wrote down the word Hartwell. She had never heard of Hartwell before. But now she had a real clue. Petra said something else. She said, "You know, I still have a relative in Hartwell." That reminded Rosa of something her mother once said. Her mother said, "One day, go and find where we come from." Rosa never understood those words before. But now, looking at the photograph, she understood. Rosa called her Aunt Petra. Petra said Eva was their grandmother. Eva lived in a town called Hartwell. The next Saturday, Rosa got on a train. Hartwell was 2 hours away. She put the photograph in her bag. She sat by the window. She felt nervous. She was going to a town she did not know. She was going to find a relative she never met. Petra gave her the name Daniel. Daniel was Eva's grandson. That made him Rosa's second cousin. Rosa looked at the landscape outside the window. There were green fields and small hills. The landscape was calm and quiet. Rosa took out the photograph. She looked at the black and white street. She tried to imagine the people who walked on that street. She tried to imagine Eva. The train stopped at Hartwell Station. Rosa arrived at 10:30 in the morning. The station was small. There were only a few people on the platform. Rosa felt like a stranger. She did not know this town. She did not know these streets. But she walked out of the station. She looked at her phone for the address Petra gave her. She felt nervous, but she kept walking. The town was quiet. Old stone buildings lined the streets. Rosa walked slowly and looked around. She passed a small park. She passed a post office. Then she turned a corner. As she stopped, she looked up at the street sign. It said Maple Street. Rosa's heart beat faster. She was standing on the street in the photograph. Rosa traveled to Hartwell by train. She felt nervous, but she kept going. She arrived and found Maple Street. Rosa stood at the beginning of Maple Street. She took out the old photograph. She held it up and looked at the street in front of her. Something felt familiar. The buildings were different now. Some were painted new colors. But the shape of the street was the same. The curve of the road matched the photograph. The old tree on the left side matched too. Rosa walked slowly down the street. She compared the photograph to the real street. Every detail was a little puzzle. She noticed a building with a large wooden door. In the photograph, there was the same door. The detail matched exactly. Rosa felt a strange feeling. The past and the present seemed to overlap. The black and white world of 1971 was right here. It was the same street, just 50 years later. She thought about Eva walking here. Eva walked this same street. Eva looked at this same tree. Rosa felt a connection she could not explain. She stopped in front of a small house. The number on the door was 14. On the photograph, she could just see a number. It was hard to read, but it looked like 14. Rosa looked at the house for a long time. A familiar feeling came over her. This was Eva's house. She was almost sure of it. Then the door opened. A man came out. He was about 60 years old. He had gray hair and kind eyes. He looked at Rosa standing on the street. "Are you lost?" he asked. Rosa smiled. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe I just arrived." Rosa walked down Maple Street with the photograph. The details matched: the tree, the road, a door. She felt the past and the present overlap. The man's name was Daniel. Rosa explained who she was. She showed him the photograph. Daniel looked at it for a long time. His eyes became soft. He said, "I know this photograph." There was a short silence. Then Daniel said, "Come in, please." Rosa followed him into the house. The house was warm and a little old. There were books on every shelf. And on one wall, there were many photographs. Rosa stopped walking. She stared at the wall of photographs. They were all old. They were all black and white. Daniel said Eva loved photographs. She took pictures of everything. He pointed to one photograph on the wall. It was the same street. It was Maple Street from the same angle. Rosa's photograph was the same, but from a different year. Daniel explained that Eva gave photographs to everyone in the family. She gave one to each child, each grandchild. She wanted them all to remember the street. She wanted them to remember the connection. Rosa looked at the photograph in her hand. This small photograph traveled from Eva to her mother to a brown box and now here. It came back to Maple Street. Daniel went to a shelf. He came back with a large book. It was an album. He opened the album on the table. Inside were more photographs of Maple Street and photographs of a woman. She had dark hair and a serious face, but her eyes were kind. Daniel said, "That is Eva." Rosa looked at Eva's face. She felt something move inside her, because the eyes looked familiar. They looked like her mother's eyes. She had inherited those eyes too. Rosa and Daniel sat at the table. He made tea. They talked for 2 hours. Daniel told her stories about Eva. Rosa listened to every word. The silence between stories felt comfortable. It felt like the silence between old friends. But they were not old friends. They were new connections. They were family. Daniel was Eva's grandson and Rosa's second cousin. He had an album full of Eva's photographs. Rosa saw Eva's face and felt a strong connection. Before Rosa left, Daniel asked her to wait. He went to a drawer. He came back with a small envelope. Inside was a photograph. It was a copy of an old photograph. It showed Eva standing outside the house. Number 14, Maple Street. Eva was smiling. It was the only photograph where Eva was smiling. Daniel said she wanted everyone to have one of these. But this copy never got sent. "I think it belongs with you now." Rosa took the photograph carefully. She felt very grateful. She did not have many words. She just said, "Thank you." Daniel said, "Come back sometime, there are more stories." Rosa smiled and said she would. She walked back to Hartwell station. The streets felt different now. They did not feel like a stranger's streets. They felt a little like her streets too. On the train home, Rosa held both photographs. The first photograph, the empty street. The second photograph, Eva smiling. Rosa looked out at the landscape. The green fields moved past the window. She thought about ordinary days. Most ordinary days are just ordinary. You eat, you work, you sleep. But some ordinary days surprise you. An ordinary box. An ordinary photograph. And then a whole new part of your family comes to life. That night, Rosa put both photographs on her wall. The empty wall was not empty anymore. She looked at Eva's smiling face. She felt grateful for the brown box. She felt grateful for the faded handwriting. She felt grateful for the clue. And she felt grateful that she did not hesitate too long. She was glad she made the phone call. She was glad she got on the train. She was glad she walked down Maple Street. Rosa made a cup of tea. She sat at her table. She looked at her wall. 2 photographs. 1 family. 1 connection that almost got lost. But it did not get lost. It waited in a brown box until someone was ready to find it. Daniel gave Rosa a photograph of Eva smiling. Rosa put both photographs on her wall at home. An ordinary day became a day she would never forget. And that is the end of today's story on Slow Stories. Rosa found an old photograph and followed it all the way to a new connection. Sometimes the most important things are waiting quietly in a box. Today's keywords were photograph, clue, curious, familiar, connection, inherit, and grateful. Try to use one of these words today. Thank you for listening to Slow Stories. See you next time.